What is good, Nio family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Nio, Tesla, SPY, Nvidia, and the QQQ. Talk about how the technicals are looking for the whole market, how this may affect Nio, what you should be watching for on the news for Nio and the overall market. But before I break anything down all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things real quick. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks with a $50 cash reward. Now, friends, in just about 10 days, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Anyways, guys, now let's talk about the market. How are things looking so far? How is Nio looking? Nio is up 2.62% for the day, trying to push its way right back up. And there's a possible accumulation phase that's forming here, which could be forming another inverse head and shoulders like pattern. We also have this bullish divergence that formed on Nio, at least for today, after we saw one last little drop as we started off to about 10.54. This could have been a liquidity grab before they push this thing up. And there's a high probability they're going to continue to try to push this thing up. Technicals look pretty good, but if we need to first break above 11.3, if that's the case, we could see Nio start flying to the upside and get a lot closer to the higher 11s. But we first have to break some key resistance. But so far, the chart's looking pretty good in my opinion. I think there's a lot of potential for it. But I want to talk about the market first and break down some other important things for context before I do talk more about Nio and these different stocks. Now, just as a reminder, we have Zoom's earnings coming out very soon right now. We have Macy's for tomorrow, Lowe's, Kohl's, and the list goes on. But the big dog for the week is going to be Nvidia. It has earnings coming out on Wednesday after the market closes. And so far, this thing is exploding. This thing was running almost 9% up in just one day, despite how big it is. And it's getting very close to all-time highs. This thing is running very hard. With Nvidia pumping, with Apple starting to break out, we're seeing the whole market just building this momentum that's helping it continue to push. I told you guys yesterday that as long as there was not any negative news involving China, Nio would likely try to follow the trend, and that is what happened today. Nio is up once again. Now, to add on to this, we do have some stuff coming out for tomorrow. It's going to be kind of significant. We have a Fed speaker, Barkin, speaking 2 hours before the market opens. We have the existing home sales numbers coming out 30 minutes after open. We have the Fed manufacturing numbers coming out, which is not going to be that crazy, but it could lead to some volatility 30 minutes after the market opens. So that's basically it in terms of data. And then after that, we have two more Fed speakers, I would say about a couple of hours after the market opens, or maybe like 1.5 hours before we close. That's like a better way to look at it. So we have Fed speakers and some manufacturing data 30 minutes after the market opens. That's what you should be watching for tomorrow. We might see some high volatility for the first 30 minutes because of this. But besides that, technicals do look quite bullish for the market. Now, for Nio, we had some bullish news. Nio is cranking out more than 300 of the ES6s, the SUVs, every single day, producing a bunch of them. That is good news for them because demand is high for this SUV, and we're continuing to see their sales climb. Also, Nio has to be ready to produce more because once we get closer to December and also November, we tend to see Nio sales go through the roof. So this could be very bullish for them. I'm very excited for the holidays. This is going to be very, very good for Nio as we're approaching the end of this year. Now, to add on to this, the ES6 has been a very, very big wake-up call for Nio, as we're seeing more and more of the reservations continuing to come out. So with all these reservations and with over 6,600 confirmed, they're continuing to get more and more to help increase their deliveries. Great news for Nio. Their models are very, very popular. The second generation ES6 is looking great, and I'm so excited for what's about to come seeing their deliveries. Now, we have deliveries for Nio coming out within 11 days. So that's going to be very telling, so make sure you're ready for this. And so far, things are looking quite good. Nio also mentioned on their Twitter page that they have collaborated with 4 parties to create the world's first self-consumption system, and once again, they're trying to improve their overall grid stations right over here. So that's very, very good for them to improve different ways that energy is going to be used, low carbon energy that's going to be used within national parks. That is awesome news for Nio, trying to continue to improve with their mission, and that is part of any great company. The mission is key, and Nio is continuing to improve and try to help improve ecosystems every single day. Now, looking at the volume, 54 million is not bad for Nio. It's not great, but it's actually not as bad as last week's volume. So a slight improvement, but it's still not like extremely high. And then to add on to this, looking at the short volume, is starting to go up just a tiny bit more, but it's not that bad. And then to add on, Deutsche Bank was saying to buy NIO. They gave NIO another buy rating. We're starting to see some bullish signals coming out again. Now, despite the lowered price pairs ratio, NIO is not as strong as it was a couple of weeks ago, but its strength is trying to improve. NIO tends to do very well on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. We're green about 55% of the time on Tuesdays, one of the best days of the week. Hopefully that helps NIO, despite the fact that the short interest went up just a little bit to over 15 million. So from a technical standpoint, this is how NIO is looking. There is a possible right left shoulder here and maybe a head that formed. We need to see NIO start to curl up. So for now, what seems most likely is NIO is going to try to break out above 11. If we hold 11, watch 11.3. If it breaks 11.3, I think NIO is going to go flying all the way up to fill this gap at 11.5 and to start pushing higher to these imbalances. We have this imbalance up here around this 11.7 area. I think NIO is going to make its way all the way up there if we do manage to break those resistance levels. I think the odds favor that happening, but just to be safe, watch it and be very careful because you never know what the news could do. You know how all this news comes out involving China and etc. So always be open-minded. I do believe NIO is going to bounce and start pushing for at least 11.3, if not 11.5, very, very soon. I'm leaning more bullish for it, but just to be safe, let's see it try to get above 11.3 to get to 11.5, then 11.7, to potentially $12 after that. So I'm leaning more bullish on NIO. I think the odds favor upside for it as it's on the verge of forming an ascending triangle, which could push this thing into the higher 11s. My gut tells me that's going to happen, not just because of NIO, but from a technical standpoint. Now, keep in mind the news involving China could affect it, but so far we're not getting much negative news, and other tickers are starting to look more bullish. If we look at Tesla, we could see Tesla kind of gap down a little bit, maybe retest like 230 or so, maybe come a little bit below the 228, then bounce and start pushing even higher to the next resistance level. The next really key level basically on Tesla is going to be about 238, if not 240, but first we have to get above 234, then 235. If we get above the 234 to 235 area, I'm going to be watching this thing push all the way up to almost 240. I think it has the potential to do that. And if Tesla starts pumping with the market with this cup and handle information, that's a bullish signal. Looking at SPY, this looks more bullish. We have an inverse head and shoulders. We were talking about this earlier. It's also trying to break out. It's getting closer to some balance at 440.5. Above that, we have 441.5, 442, then 444 coming after that. Let's see if it could hold 440. So far, we're getting closer and we're looking like we're forming a cup and handle. It looks more bullish than bearish. If we do break down, watch 438, 437.5, then 436.5 as our supports. I don't think it's going to break down that much. We could see a slight pullback, like 438 being retested before another bounce and a push up to 440 plus. That's what my gut is telling me. For Aapl, it could pull back to about 175 again before getting another bounce, a very tiny little pullback before it bounces and starts pushing very nicely to this imbalance, trying to get up to about 177. That is acting as a magnet, and I think it's going to push up for the 177s very, very soon. That seems very probable, and I think that's going to help push the market up. For the QQQ, it's the same thing. Inverse head and shoulders is starting to push up and making its way up to the 360s. We're going to be watching this thing retest 362.5, maybe then get a bounce and start pushing up, in my opinion, to 365 plus, 366. Then we have 367.25. I think it's going to try to push at least to 365 after getting a small little pullback to the 362s before it pushes back up to 365, then potentially all the way up to 366, 367.5, and potentially 368. Last but not least, we have Nvidia stock. Before I talk about NIO one last time, Nvidia is a monster. This thing is up almost 9% if you include the after hours. It exploded just on Friday. It was at 416 today, and it's currently at 471. It exploded, absolutely exploded. This thing is going to the moon. And I believe if it keeps this up, we have to see it test 480 next. That's going to be our next like really critical level. Since it technically broke almost every other level, we're going to be watching this 478 to 480 resistance. If it breaks that, this thing may be well on its way to $500. It might just shoot up to 500 by Wednesday right before its earnings, and we'll see what happens after that. But it looks bullish. It's holding up nicely. we have this inverse head and shoulder structure. It actually continued to break out. It might pull back a little bit, retest like the 465 or so before continuing to go up. And we might see this thing go all the way up to 480. If it breaks down, I'm going to be watching 500. I think it could see 500 right before its earnings. Why is this important? Because Nvidia is dictating the momentum in the markets. If this thing keeps going, it's going to drag the QQQ up. If the QQQ goes up and we see other stocks following it, some of these stocks are correlated with that of SPY. When SPY starts pumping alongside other tickers, the whole market's going to start pumping. This is going to help NIO, right? We were calling the bounce on Friday. We were talking about on Saturday and Sunday. I kept telling you NIO is probably going to bounce if we continue to see it hold up with the market, and that is what's happening so far. As long as there's no bad news involving China, NIO should bounce and start pushing back to 11.3 by tomorrow. If that breaks, I'm going to be watching 11.5 and 11.78 like here, then potentially even $12 if it gets above 11.78. So we'll see about that, but it looks more bullish in my opinion, and we're going to just watch it very, very carefully. All right, so with that said, thank you all so much for listening. Have an absolutely spectacular rest of the day. NIO to the moon alongside the whole market as the long term is still incredibly bright, and peace out.